Hey everyone, Bill Barhydt here. Welcome to the Abra Money 3.0 show where I talk about the future of money and technology. This episode is an edited audio version of a recently recorded Money Talks Live AMA. There's also a video version of this podcast available on youtube.com/Abra Global. Again, that's youtube.com/Abra Global. The information presented in this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be used or construed as an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any of the financial assets discussed. Neither Abra nor any of the participants in this podcast make any representation as to the suitability or appropriateness of these financial assets for individual investors. Investors must make their own determination, either alone or in consultation with their own financial advisors, as to the suitability or appropriateness of such investments. Abra interest accounts are issued by Prime Trust and Nevada Chartered Trust Company. Rates for Abra interest accounts are subject to change. Digital currencies are not legal tender, are not backed by any government, and Abra interest accounts are not subject to FDIC or SIPC insurance protections. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. This is one of the most insane news weeks I've seen in crypto in a really long time. A lot of times this kind of news cycle is kind of teed up for Consensus, the big conference. I think it's in May, but it's all happening now. Nobody can wait. It's real time. I'm going to give you some highlights over the next few minutes, but you should go check out my Twitter feed. It's really insane. The volume of news that's been coming out this week. So let's see. Let's start off with BNY Mellon. All right, BNY Mellon is the largest and oldest asset manager in the United States. It's the nation's oldest bank. They made a huge leap into Bitcoin headfirst with their announcement yesterday. The announcement was basically that the bank will allow their enterprise customers to hold, transfer, and issue. I actually don't understand what they meant by this, but they said issue Bitcoin, which is obviously not possible. But they actually included the word issue. Maybe that refers to other cryptocurrencies and stable coins that some of their partners will want to issue in the future. But the fact that they're getting headlong into the cryptocurrency business is a huge, huge deal for all of us. May not affect most of us directly day to day, but large enterprises that are using Mellon for asset management, other custodians that can outsource to Mellon, it's a big deal for our space and lends a lot of credibility to the crypto world. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. Okay, so that was one announcement. Another one, I actually think in some ways for our world, this might be even bigger, and that was MasterCard's announcement. Now, this was a little confusing to some, so let's break it down a little bit. MasterCard announced that they're going to give merchants the ability to receive payments in crypto later this year. Now, there's a nuance here. They're not talking about consumers making payments in crypto. They're talking about merchants receiving the settlement of their paid funds. Now, why is this a big deal? Well, think about it. MasterCard, Visa, Amex, Discover, they're in a global land grab to get as many merchants as they can into their networks. Okay? When you're in the MasterCard network, generally you need a bank account to settle at the end of the month with your consumers, or daily, depending upon how the payments work. So that means that merchants in certain high-risk markets that can't get bank accounts, or in developing markets where they're hard to bank, are shut out from accepting debit or credit products. With this announcement, these merchants will be able to receive stablecoins directly into a crypto wallet. So imagine that you can receive USD, TrueUSD, Tether as payments at the end of the month, or in other international stablecoins as those become available. And I think we'll see stablecoins issued for all emerging market coins because those add huge value versus even the dollar, in my opinion. The primary use for the dollar stablecoin right now is crypto trading. But for developing markets, it actually adds enormous value just beyond crypto trading. So this announcement by MasterCard is a really big deal, in my opinion, and I'm pretty excited to see where this goes. Okay, so now, of course, we have Amazon. Amazon is eyeing Mexico for a digital currency payments project. They didn't really announce any details, but a lot of folks have been digging in. They have this kind of digital and emerging payments DEP initiative inside of Amazon. It appears to be an extension of AWS, their web services. They're going to start on a payments project with Mexico, which will allow merchants to use their digital currency apparently with consumers. And we'll see how that goes. But it's super cool that that Amazon is now getting headfirst into crypto. We would be remiss if we didn't get into the weekly Elon news. So of course, first we had the Doge pump, and we all know how that went. And now, of course, we know why Elon changed his Twitter header to say Bitcoin. They announced as part of their, I think it was part of their earnings or SEC filings, that they've purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Now, let's take a look at the effect of that announcement. So Bitcoin is up about 25% this week, right? So those of you online, let's take a look at my favorite Bitcoin chart. See if we can get that up here. Where is that chart? Here we go. Okay. So let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart going back a few months, right? We have basically gone from what looked like a relatively flat slope last year to an almost vertical slope over the last couple of months, with the exception of the retracement that we had back in the early or mid-January timeframe, excuse me. And of course, you can see here this big vertical bar, the green bar on the chart. Those of you who are online can see, that was a huge jump. One of the biggest Bitcoins ever had. I think it was $7,500 in one day. I'll repeat that, $7,500 in one day. That is just incredible growth for Bitcoin. And so, reminder, right? My second favorite chart, Bitcoin pullbacks 2017, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30% pullbacks, a couple in the 35% range. Those of you who think that Bitcoin is going to go straight up are going to be very disappointed. I think it's going to 100,000 this year. That's my opinion. I don't give investment advice, as I always say on Money Talks, but my other opinion is that we're going to have lots of these 30% pullbacks along the way. But in any case, Bitcoin is looking super bullish right now. Look, we're just getting started. We've had a couple of companies, MicroStrategy, which is a mid-cap company, Tesla, obviously huge company. I personally fully expect all of the FANG companies to get into crypto on their balance sheet. And as I keep saying, there's not enough crypto to go around, not enough Bitcoin to go around. If these companies start putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, it's game over. And this thing's going to go 100,000 will be just the beginning. All right, so that's Bitcoin. Let's look at Ethereum for a second while we're on the topic of pricing. Ethereum is on fire, up 75% over the last 30 days. I think Ethereum is going to be a lot more volatile than Bitcoin, but I also think that it's got a lot more upside potential. If you actually compare Ethereum 2021 to where Bitcoin was in 17, it looks very similar. In English, that means we could easily see 20,000 Bitcoin. That sounds insane. It even sounds insane to me when I say it, but it's not out of the question, right? So Ethereum looking also really interesting here. Okay, so we talked about Elon. I talked about Mastercard. So a couple of other interesting news items. Looks like Ray Dalio is going to be keynoting Consensus this year. Right now, I assume everybody knows who Ray Dalio is. For those of you who don't know, he is one of the most prolific hedge fund CIOs in history, and his company Bridgewater is just considered the gold standard in running a hedge fund. That didn't have a great 2020 from what I understand, but historically just one of the best run hedge funds in the world. Very hard to get into. He's had kind of mixed public comments on Bitcoin, and he wrote with his team a really interesting, don't agree with all of it, but still a really interesting article on their take on Bitcoin. If you follow Dalio on LinkedIn, that's the best place to view the article. I've published it also on my Twitter feed, but follow Dalio on LinkedIn and you'll find it there. Really interesting. The Nigerian Senate had a debate on Bitcoin and crypto and where it fits in in the Nigerian economy, and they published some of the key quotes from that debate that they had. And there were some people who think that it needs to be destroyed and Bitcoin needs to be just banned, which, as you and I all know, is impossible, which also proves that many senators in Nigeria still don't understand how this works. But some basically said, we need to embrace this. Our constituents want this. They're using it now. And they seem to get that it's not going anywhere. So that was encouraging. But it is a healthy debate. We'll see how this goes over the coming months. But Nigeria is a huge market, a huge population. And we hope and pray that they do the right thing and don't overregulate where none is necessary. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for some questions. So we have a couple of questions here. Let me take one. Is there, somebody was asking, is there an advantage to leaving crypto on an exchange versus leaving crypto on Abra? And the answer is yes. You can earn interest by moving the crypto over to a wallet like Abra. And so if that's not clear, we talk a lot about how that works. You can go to abra.com, and there's lots and lots of various articles about how the interest accounts work, right? And so you can earn up to 10% on your dollars, 5% on Bitcoin, and we probably get, I would say, 60% of Abra's deposits these days are coming from people who are using exchanges and are basically just like I said, moving over from their exchange account to Abra. And we love, obviously supporting those users because they have a little bit more savviness and they're already into crypto. Let's see. So is Abra going to be announcing something vis-a-vis your Stellar investment? So just some context there. We did take an investment from the Stellar Foundation. Most of you know the cryptocurrency, the Lumens, which is issued by originally created by the foundation, but now is a public crypto. Yeah, we took some money there. We are working on something that we're not ready to announce. Hopefully that will be announced soon. But nothing specific to announce yet. So let's see what else. Lots of questions coming in. I'm trying to take questions that are a little bit more, what is my take on what Visa is going to do on crypto versus what Mastercard did or announced with their announcement? Good question. So they're taking a different approach, right? Visa's going very hard after all of these kind of Bitcoin and crypto debit card issuers, which, I think that's smart for them. And they're trying to basically become the kind of default brand for people who want to spend money on crypto. That's a relatively small market right now, but I think it's going to really be a booming market over the next 5 to 6 years. Secondarily, I think that what MasterCard is doing is probably more relevant in the short term. And that's because MasterCard is really focused on enabling merchants to settle outside of the banking system. And that's a big deal because that means that high-risk merchants, like merchants, for example, in the cannabis space, where it's very difficult, or marijuana dispensaries, where it's very difficult to get a bank account, could actually, in theory, accept credit card payments, but not need a bank account to settle those payments directly from the MasterCard network. Okay, so let's see. So we've got a few more questions. Why don't I take one on Clubhouse? Curtis, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey,
I'm here. Hey,
good morning. What's up?
Morning. I just had a question. So, with all the good news, obviously Visa, BNY Mellon, MasterCard, existing financial systems that are embracing Bitcoin, obviously sounds good. And I think, any way to get value that exists today, whether it's stocks, cash, or whatever, into digital assets is positive. Those rails are positive. But what would you say to critics who say, like, well, if, all the banks are getting into it, if Visa is getting into it, doesn't that just, go back to the old system of the big institutions controlling the money, except this time the money is just digital assets? How would you respond to a critic like that?
That's a great question. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it myself. I guess let me give both perspectives, right? So obviously having monolithic, these too big to fail banks owning the crypto markets is somewhat defeatist when it comes to the reason why Bitcoin is so special. Now, that having been said, I've always predicted that Bitcoin would be hoarded until it was worth trillions of dollars, and then it would become interesting as a payment system. And it just stands to reason that the wealthiest will unfortunately get the bulk of that. There are a lot of new billionaires being minted via Bitcoin, which is great. But I think banks ultimately are going to have no choice because I think their traditional businesses are going to die. And the question is going to become who is going to enable all of the person-to-person payment services, all of the merchant payment services. So even if you're holding Bitcoin in a hardware wallet in your pocket or on your phone, right, you're still going to want to pay a merchant, and merchants are going to need help accepting those payments. And I think that banks and merchant processors are going to have a role to play there. Although I honestly think the biggest players in crypto over time are actually going to be companies that didn't exist at the beginning of crypto, whether it's companies like Abra that are basically building kind of this next generation crypto banking system, or companies like Coinbase and other exchanges. I also think you're going to see a whole new kind of DeFi based ecosystem emerge, and companies are going to have to add value versus these DeFi systems, where the DeFi systems don't necessarily need the companies to function. And so you'll see a whole bunch of companies that provide a really slick user experience on top of DeFi so that customers can actually do things like generate yield, like earning interest or making investments without necessarily having to understand the complexity of DeFi. So while I'm all about the core tenets of DeFi and crypto and all that stuff, it's still going to require a lot of entrepreneurship to get it to work. And that's exciting, right? And so we'll see where the big companies ultimately fit in. But if you think about it in the context of the internet itself, the most important companies on the internet today were created explicitly to service the internet, right? It's Facebook, it's Amazon, it's Google. The biggest exception is probably Apple, but they're at their core, a computer company that's translated into the phone. So I think the same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin and crypto in general. Okay, Natalia, good morning. You're on mute. Did you want to ask a question? Oh, maybe.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. And I see you on YouTube too, so you're coming through there.
All right.
So I have a question about Maker. It's up 200% today, and nobody really talks about Maker, and I was just wondering your thoughts. I mean, it's at $2,681.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually actively track Maker. I mean, we support DAI at Abra, which is, I think, really interesting because it's what we call a collateralized stablecoin, which means that the value of DAI is driven by the value of all of the underlying crypto assets that make up the DAI. But I actually have no insight as I'll take a look. Maybe I'll do a post on Twitter after, but I actually have no insight as to what's driving the price of Maker today. If anybody here has any news or anything to share, please raise your hand and let us know. But right now, I don't have any insight specifically around what's going on with Maker.
Oh, sorry. I want to correct myself too. It's up 6%. I have my glasses on.
Well, that's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, it was up $200.
Gotcha.
But still, it's more than Ethereum right now. So
Yep.
that was my interest.
Yep, for sure. I mean, we're seeing a lot of spikes in various altcoin projects. over the last few days, and we do post about them and do push messages on Abra because a lot of our Abra customers have very specific coins that they're interested in. For example, the Digibyte community is huge on Abra, right? It's actually one of our most popular tokens, and a lot of that community just uses Abra as their Digibyte wallet, and we love them. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of a mini altcoin season going on right now, which has been driven by the run up in Ethereum for sure.
Yeah, and I just have a quick 2 cents on Maker. So I think a couple things that are adding to specifically Maker's run is, one, not too long ago they sort of reached their supply limit in terms of DAI production. And so essentially people couldn't create more DAI, and I think that was a bullish signal. And the other thing, obviously, is just, as you mentioned, DeFi yields have been exploding. People are generally more comfortable with taking out leverage, taking out loans, collateralizing whatever assets they have to go long. So I think just the increased yield, there's just more demand for these stable coins, whether it's DAI or USDC, to essentially go long.
Yep. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So I can see why that kind of scarcity would also drive a lot of interest here. So thanks for that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Will Abra be supporting stocks in the app anytime soon? Elizabeth, thanks for the question. Unfortunately, we don't have any plans to announce on stocks. It's something that I would love to do. We have to be very careful how we even talk about it, just given the way the SEC works in the US. But we have nothing to announce. It's something we would love to add to the app globally. Others are doing it outside the US where there's different rules. We're going to basically take a more conservative legal tack to doing it when we do. And we hope to be able to announce something there in the future, but nothing to announce today. So here's another one. Joe asks, and I get this question every single day. We'd love to see an IRA Roth option inside of Abra and also in the broader kind of crypto space at large. Do you think this is going to come? Do I see this coming in Abra or in other places? And the answer is yes, absolutely. This is something that I also want, not only for Abra, but for myself. I have a little bit of influence, so I would definitely expect to see IRA and Roth and even 401k type of capabilities within Abra in the coming months. And for those of you outside the U.S. listening in, these are basically retirement account type of options that give you tax advantages for holding crypto as part of a retirement account. So great question, Joe. And yes, it's something we definitely want to do.
Really looking forward to that, Bill. Just wanted to add that. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so happy to take more questions on Clubhouse. Otherwise, we will continue to take the online questions. Just letting the folks on YouTube know that the stream is not working, that's a first. I don't know why.
I'm seeing you on YouTube right now.
Yeah, you could be watching an old video. I have no idea.
Oh yeah, I'm watching it on video.
Yeah.
On my Apple TV.
Yep. Okay, so all right. So let's see. We've got Kevna. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Kevna. I apologize. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you're saying it perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
So thank you. I am grateful I came across this Clubhouse group so that I can discuss. And my question was regarding DOT. What do you think about DOT and its popularity in the last few weeks or months, I would say?
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely getting a lot of attention, partially because of the team. There's overlap with DOT and the Ethereum team and the original Ethereum team. And so as a result, it's a lot of people are really bullish on its ability to scale versus Ethereum. I have not done as deep a dive as I want to, but on the surface, the project looks pretty interesting. We haven't added DOT yet on Abra because our custodians haven't added it yet, but we're pushing them to get it up as soon as possible so we can add at least the DOT token to the app, and hopefully that will happen soon. But yeah, I say this almost every chance I get. Most of my friends in crypto are what I would call Bitcoin maximalists, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I look at it a little bit differently. I know the role that Bitcoin will play in the broader ecosystem as a better digital gold, but I believe that the more competition we have for crypto technologies to improve banking, improve money, improve the way all this works, the better off we'll be. And I think that DOT is another example of that. Just like Cardano and is trying to compete with Ethereum, so will Polkadot, right? And so we'll see how this all plays out. Some of these projects will die. Some people will lose money. And I always tell people looking at these altcoin projects to be very careful and only invest what you're willing to lose. But that having been said, I think the competition is fantastic. And that's what excites me the most about all of this.
So as an investor who doesn't have so much money in crypto and coming late into the game, would you suggest investing still in the popular ones like Bitcoin, which is like
yes,
absurd amount of money at this point of time for anyone to enter?
Well, it's all relative, right? So think it's more about the price movement going forward than it is about the price of Bitcoin, right? Because if Bitcoin goes up 10x, it doesn't matter whether it goes 10x up from $1 to $10 or from 40,000 to 400,000. So I think that the best investment right now in crypto is still Bitcoin. It's highly likely, in my humble opinion, again, I don't give investment advice. I'm just telling you how I personally look at it. I think Bitcoin has huge upside in front of it. It's got clean air in front of it. That's my Formula One analogy. There's nobody blocking Bitcoin right now to keep going up. Enterprises and corporate treasurers are looking at Bitcoin. They're not looking at any other cryptocurrency right now to put on their balance sheet. As a matter of fact, the higher Bitcoin goes, the more interesting it becomes to hedge funds and treasurers, because treasurers, they're not looking for 10x gains, right? They're looking for stable stores of value that might give them a few percent a year, but they're also looking more importantly at capital preservation and more importantly, purchasing power preservation, right? And so with banks paying negative yields, the bond market's crashing, Bitcoin is becoming a fantastic investment. And we're in this transition period still, which I think is going to go on for another 10 years, right? So that's why I think Bitcoin is going to go to a couple of million eventually. Not tomorrow, but over the next 10 years for sure. Now, I personally hold about 20% in Ethereum, but that's a personal choice, and that's a much higher risk investment for me. When I say 20%, I mean 20% of my crypto investments. And so, but again, that's a personal choice. A lot of my Bitcoin maximalist friends think that's ridiculous, and a lot of my Ethereum global computer visionary friends think it's too little. So it's a personal choice. I do think the Ethereum investment will be more volatile. I do think it has even more upside potential this year, but I could lose it all, right? And so I look at it differently. I'm quite convinced Bitcoin is, first of all, I'll buy all the Bitcoin before it gets to zero. So it's not going to zero, but it could fall. And I showed you the chart earlier. Well, I talked about the chart earlier. You didn't see it on Clubhouse, of all of the kind of 30% pullbacks we had during the big 2017 run up. Now we had our first one in January. We had I think it was about a 28% retracement. And I have no crystal ball, but I'd be shocked if it didn't happen again. But anyway, there's my long answer to your simple question.
And if you have time, I also wanted to know, how do you feel about another altcoin, Stellar?
Yeah, sure. So I talked about this earlier. Abra. No, that's okay. I like talking about Stellar because they're investors in Abra. Full disclosure. When I say Stellar, I mean the foundation itself are investors in Abra. In terms of the Stellar Lumen product, it's definitely a better version of the core of Ripple for sure. It's more decentralized. It is more focused on developing stablecoins in developing markets, and I think that's a fantastic use case for the Stellar network. The foundation is very focused on developing markets, which I think is fantastic. And they want to interoperate with Bitcoin and like the payment cryptos in those markets, and a lot of their work is focused on stablecoins. So Lumens itself are not necessarily required to build these stablecoins. So time will tell what happens to XLM as an investment. I don't hold any. It doesn't. My interest in Stellar is more with the network and the ability to issue stablecoins on the network than it is in holding Lumens. But it's very popular. We get a lot of Lumen holders in Abra. So,
thank you.
Sure thing. Somebody's asking, is there anything available to track Bitcoin in real time for financial programs such as Quicken other than these APIs? And the answer is yes. This is a very technical question. We usually don't get too many technical questions here, but there are several ways to integrate the price of Bitcoin into Google Sheets. I do that, for example, via third-party APIs. It's actually very simple. You can literally access the price of Bitcoin just like a function in Excel directly via Google Sheet, for example. So if you want to track a simple portfolio or things like that, I do that all the time. There's other service providers like I believe Masari and CoinMarketCap that expose the price data that you can pull into other things. I don't know if it's real time. Maybe you have to pay. But yeah, there's lots of places where you can do that. Okay? So thanks for that question, Alan. Let's see. Uno, very interesting name. So Uno, welcome. I've got you up here. Did you have a question for us?
Yes, sir. Quick question. Would there be in the future Abra debit card in development for the platform?
So in general, I don't comment on unannounced products or potential future products, except to say that's something that I would love to have for myself. And usually when I say that I would love to have something for myself at Abra, there's a pretty good chance that it might happen in the future. So stay tuned, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for showing up. Senor, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm good. It's Senior Sandwich, actually.
All right. Well, what can we do for you?
My question would be: Is there any talks in the future about offering more than 10% on the stable coins in the interest-bearing account?
Yeah. So let me explain the question for everybody else who is not familiar with the interest accounts. And for those of you watching on Facebook and Periscope, I brought up the interest account on the screen. And so the Abra interest account allows you to basically deposit Tether, USDC, True USD, Paxos, and earn interest. And today we pay 10% on those. We set the rates weekly. To my knowledge, we've never lowered the rates. I believe we raised the rate on dollars once last year. The demand for dollars in our system has been very, very high. I wouldn't be surprised to see the rates go up again in the coming weeks. No promises, but the rates have held very steady, and the dollar demand, which is what drives the rates we pay you, has been very healthy as Bitcoin has been going up in price. So we don't pre-announce anything on interest rates. They actually fluctuate daily, and we don't expose all of that to you because it's too complicated. It would drive everybody crazy if we were changing rates every day. And so stay tuned. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of movement in the dollar rates, but no promises. We'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill.
My pleasure. Thanks for the question. Let's see. So we do have, if you ask a question you want to stay up, you're welcome to, but you're also welcome to move yourself down. JG, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. So,
yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
I'm new to your platform, just heard about you, and maybe can you talk a little bit about what distinguishes you between maybe the similar competition like BlockFi and Nexo?
Absolutely. I love that question. So a few things. I would say one, we probably have the most comprehensive offering. Not probably. I believe we have the most comprehensive offering in the world that mixes for the consumer trading over 100 cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other big ones, plus the interest accounts where we pay 10% on dollars, 5% on crypto. We have enterprise accounts. We run a very conservative enterprise lending business, which is how we generate the yield on the interest accounts. I believe it's way more conservative than anybody else in the space. We probably generate a lower net interest margin for ourselves than other companies, but it allows us to have a more stable product for you with less risk. We are in the final phrase of about to make a big announcement in the retail lending space. I don't want to give too much away there. That's going to be a big deal. And I've alluded to some of the payment stuff via the other questions that I would like to see in the product. So I feel like, and the fact that we're global, right? I think we have more payment rails to get in and out of Abra globally than anyone else. We take bank wires from all over the world, unlimited in size. We have people depositing a few dollars. We have people depositing a few $1 million. And so we're happy, very happy to take that huge range of people with different net worth, different investment focuses, and I think that's another unique selling point for Abra versus what other people are doing.
Great, thanks, Phil. I appreciate the work you do with remittances in the Philippines. My parents are from there, so thanks.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, one of the ways that we allow people to use Abra in certain countries is via cash. And we get a lot of U.S. listeners here, so it's probably not as relevant to all of you. But if you're in the Philippines or in Guatemala or in the Middle East, there's places you can go. And if you actually open the Abra app in those countries, so I'll bring up the screenshot for those of you online. If you actually click on Add Money, like you see in the middle screen, you'll actually have an option to deposit cash. And it'll actually bring up a map to where you can go to one of our retail Abra tellers and deposit cash directly into the app. Or if somebody sent you money via crypto that you want to withdraw, you can actually withdraw it in cash at the same teller. And that has become a really big business for us in developing markets. And I love that the same app, literally the same app, we don't run different versions of the app. Everybody in the world gets the same version of Abra, whether it's Android or iOS. And the same version of the app that's used by people in Florida, California, Connecticut, is the same app used by folks like your parents and others in the Philippines who might be getting $10 via money transfer. That's something that we're really proud of, and so I thanks for that comment. Yeah, so a lot of people asking about bank withdrawals and the timing for bank withdrawals. So we support bank withdrawals all over the world at Abra, in over 100 countries, and so we don't control the banking system, obviously, in these countries, but we can tell you that if you're using a bank wire, the settlement should be either same day or next day. And if you're using a local payment system in your country, such as in the Philippines, it's totally dependent upon the banking system in that country. And so if you're experiencing delays, we do push the banks to move faster, but unfortunately, even crypto is going to be dependent upon what those banks do on occasion. So that question is coming up a lot, and I just wanted to address that head on. So let's see. DeAndre, good morning. Did you have a question?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
I did have a question. I have taken some time and looked over some of the offerings that Abra has on their site, and one question I had was, in the future, or currently in works, what thoughts or what products are you all looking to create that will allow holders of cryptocurrency to collateralize their cryptocurrency, to borrow against them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that is something that I can confirm that we have been working on very hard. So we already do that today at Abra. We've been doing it for over a year for businesses. So if anybody here who has a business and for whatever reason has crypto, they can borrow against it today. That's a big business for us. That's actually how we generate most of the yield that you earn in the Abra interest account. So the next step for us is to do that for consumers. And while I don't want to give all of it away because it's going to be a really big announcement for us in the next few weeks, it's something we've been working very, very hard on for many months. And so stay tuned, but it's going to be a fun winter and spring for Abra, for sure.
Okay, another question, follow-up.
Yeah.
How does a business owner reach out to Abra in regards to leveraging their crypto?
Yeah,
I'm
just...
a business owner that's interested, so I kind of need some...
Sure. That's a great question. Just send me an email, and I'll forward it on, bill@abra.com, and I'll introduce the business owner to the enterprise lending team. They're awesome. They're really, really good. We have the best enterprise lending team in crypto. And so we onboard new enterprises every week. And it's a bit of a process, a little bit of a due diligence process on the business, but they're very fast and very efficient.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Cool. Dan, good morning.
Hey, Bill, what's going on?
What's going on, man?
I'm over here in Asia. So it's
Okay. Good evening.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to hear what your outlook is on the APAC region, right? And then, how far you guys have penetrated this area of the world.
Yep.
And what countries you guys are busiest in.
Yep. Good question.
And what you kind of think about this side of the world.
So I don't talk about this very much, but Asia Pacific is definitely our biggest region in general. We get more customers every day out of Asia than we do from the U.S., for example. New customers, right? If you look at new registrations in our system, we get thousands upon thousands of new registrations every single day, and right now the majority come from Asia. But it's also 100 countries, so it's a wide swath of users from different markets. The service has become very popular in developing markets because of our cash capabilities and our local bank integration. So in the Philippines, Indonesia, we're very popular. The brand recognition for Abra way exceeds what you would normally expect in the crypto world. The average Filipino has heard of Abra, let's put it that way. In Indonesia, that's becoming true. And so we're also getting a lot of users in Hong Kong, in Singapore. We haven't really gotten too deep into China yet, and I think that's partially an issue of the localization. We don't offer the app in any Chinese languages, or localization, sorry. And so that's something that we definitely are going to do this year. You're going to see the app localized more and also get into more local payment methods. But we're very bullish on Asia. We're getting also a lot of high net worth users even who wire us a lot of money. They like the interest accounts, both for dollars and Bitcoin. So yeah, good question. But given that we're mostly a U.S. based company, although we do have employees now in almost every continent, except for Antarctica, we're doing quite well in Asia, and our growth there has been spectacular.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. So let's see, Francis, how's it going?
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Quick question. From a lending professional side, I'm seeing a lot of other platforms utilize, utility tokens, and I'm just curious, A, does your platform have any? Or B, what is your outlook on those? I've seen a few dissenting opinions in regards to how a company can use that utility token. I'm just curious on your thoughts.
Sure. So the most popular kind of pure utility token right now in the world is probably BNB, which is Binance's utility token. So yeah, Abra supports like 100 cryptocurrencies in our system, right? So and some of them are other blockchains like Lumen's or Ethereum, and some are utility tokens like Orchid, which we support internationally, or tokens like BNB, or Crypto.com's token, for example, right? So and so some are more utilitarian that use Ethereum or other competing blockchains, and some are just other pure blockchains, right? And so we tend to focus on crypto projects or utility tokens that have a lot of liquidity, that are very popular and provide value to consumers. And so we're not purely driven by what text messages we're getting from users or Twitter messages, but we take that into account. But by and large, projects that are getting no usage or no liquidity on exchanges, you're just not going to see listed on Abra. And I'll also make the point that I made to an earlier question, which is my favorite point as it relates to all these competing projects, and that is that it's the technology competition, the competition that we get from having all of these different projects that is really going to move the crypto space forward ultimately. And I love that, and I don't see any other way to accelerate the crypto space except having more competition. And it seems to be working, right? So a lot of things that Bitcoin wouldn't do, for example, Litecoin does, right? Litecoin is integrating Mimblewimble privacy capabilities right now, which Bitcoin may eventually do. I suspect it will have true privacy capabilities at some point. Probably not ZK snarks, but something that adds privacy. And it's the fact that other crypto projects are able to do it first that gives the Bitcoin Core development community comfort that this is going to work ultimately.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a really great insight. Thank you.
Cool, man. Thanks for joining. Here's a question: how does Tourneo come into play with Visa and Mastercard? My understanding is Tourneo is a one of those debit card issuers that allows you to access Bitcoin via a debit card. I have not tried it. I've been looking a little bit at the Fold app, which I think is pretty cool. I just ordered mine, so hopefully I'll get it soon, and I'll report back what I find. I've been playing with. I just did a brain freeze on the. There's another app that allows you to earn Bitcoin from your purchases, which I thought was pretty cool. So I've been playing with that as well. All things that I think are really interesting for Abra users, just going deep and seeing what's going on out there. So let's see. So can you explain how Abra is able to pay interest on? Yeah. Okay. So we answered this before, but let me just address it one more time since the question came in. And so we generate interest on the Abra interest account by effectively lending your deposits. It's no different than what a bank does structurally, except the mechanics for doing it are different because these are cryptocurrencies, not cash. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. So you can basically take your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your dollars converted to stable coins, deposit them into Abra, and earn between 5 and 10%, depending upon which coins we're talking about. 10% on dollars and up to 5% on the cryptocurrencies. So what we do is, like I said, we lend those cryptocurrencies to enterprise customers today, and I alluded to eventually consumers as well, and they post collateral in exchange for those loans. So if you're borrowing dollars, the collateral is usually Bitcoin or Ethereum. And if you're borrowing Bitcoin or Ethereum, the collateral is usually dollars. Okay, and often the collateral is worth even more than the amount they're borrowing, and that depends upon the due diligence that we do on the borrower, where we set the rate, where we set the collateral requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And that determines the interest that we're able to pay back to you as the consumer doing those deposits in the first place. Okay, so we get that question a lot. Also, we have a lot of articles. We also have interest calculators on Abra.com if you want to see how all of that works, how it would play out with your deposits. You simply type in the amount, you type in the holding period, and it shows you for each specific type of currency how much interest you would earn with Abra. Okay, so good question. DeAndre or Kavana, if you have other questions, feel free to shout them out. I'll do a couple more minutes here before we wrap up. I do have, let's see, there is a little bit more crypto news which we can talk about. But if you all have any other questions, feel free to shout them out.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Bitcoin Cash. Is that still a valid investment or no?
Yeah, I don't really see Bitcoin Cash as what I would call an investment. I see Bitcoin Cash as kind of a competitor for what I would call P2P transactions or ephemeral transactions. And what I mean by that is if I want to send money to someone, I want to send $10 and I can't do it with Bitcoin, for example, because the fees are too high. Lightning isn't really ready yet. Lightning is this technology that allows people to do person-to-person money transfers. And when I say ready, the technology works. It's just not pervasive enough. And so what I might do is put a little bit of money in like a Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash if the recipient is willing to receive it, knowing that they're going to convert it back to dollars or Bitcoin immediately when they get it. People generally don't want to hold Bitcoin Cash, but you can get in and out of it very quickly at very low cost, which makes it a little useful for money transfer. I just personally don't think it's a very good investment. It doesn't really have the network effect of Bitcoin, and it's just not being hoarded the same way that Bitcoin is. And so if you look at the price chart, it's not getting the run up. And again, it makes sense if people aren't using it and intending to hold it. and they're getting out as quickly as they can on a money transfer, it's probably less useful as an investment. So, DeAndre, did you have a follow-up question?
Hey, Bill. So I did have a question. It's kind of two parts because the last question made me think. But I guess I'll start with this question.
Okay.
One of the things I notice about the market is there's typically a very high yield for deposits on stablecoins.
Yes.
As compared to traditional cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum.
That's correct.
Can you give me some background as to why that is?
Sure. It's simple. It's supply and demand. So right now in the crypto world, there is way more demand for dollars than there is for crypto. And that is for usually three reasons. The first is leverage. And so some of this might be hedge funds who want to post Bitcoin as collateral to borrow dollars to actually buy more Bitcoin. And so what they're doing is they're doubling down on their bet on Bitcoin, right? So that's what we mean by leverage. The second is related to that, which is this grayscale product. There's let's call it an arbitrage premium, an arbitrage opportunity to basically extract the premium. If you actually buy Bitcoin by buying the grayscale product, there's actually a premium built into that, meaning the value of that stock is actually higher than the value of the Bitcoin that it represents. And there's many reasons for that. It's beyond the scope of this conversation, but that premium exists. And some people are actually playing that arbitrage by borrowing dollars here and using it to extract that premium. There's ways to do that for sophisticated investors. The third is miners. A lot of miners are mining Bitcoin. They don't want to sell it, but they need to buy more mining equipment. So they'll post the Bitcoin that they win as collateral to borrow dollars to buy more mining rigs. And so there's way more demand for those use cases than there is for people borrowing Bitcoin. Most people borrowing Bitcoin are borrowing it to short the Bitcoin. And right now, there's not a lot of interest in shorting Bitcoin. That's why the interest rate on Bitcoin is 4.5% versus dollars, which is like 10%. And I suspect it'll stay that way for a while.
So just for some more clarity, are we saying that U.S. currencies like USDC and Tether are in a sense because they're not backed dollar to dollar, so are they backed?
Well, that's not true. So USDC, True USD, Paxos in our system are provably backed dollar for dollar, right? So they have money transmitter licenses in the U.S. Their banks require them to hold reserves equal to exactly the float. Now, Tether claims that they have reserves not only in cash but equivalents that are equal. It's just that they don't have a public-facing audit that verifies that. So I have no opinion one way or the other on whether that's true or not.
But USDC does.
USDC, True USD, Paxos are all U.S. regulated either money transmitters or trust banks. And so as such, their licenses, to my knowledge, require them to maintain one-to-one reserves with their U.S. banks.
Okay, I'm following you.
Yeah. So at Abra, for example, if you make a dollar deposit via Bankwire or ACH or one of our retail teller networks or the marketplace, it's automatically converted to True USD. And we chose True USD as opposed to Tether for exactly this reason, DeAndre, that it was, we knew that we could trust it. We knew that we could access the mint directly to get you in and out via stablecoin at no cost. And there was no chance that the bank that underlies that, who is also a partner of Abra's, was going to go away. So we actually ended up partnering directly with the same bank that they used to give ourselves even more comfort that there was nothing going on behind the scenes that would give us a pause for supporting that as our kind of default stablecoin.
Okay, no, I appreciate you bringing some of that clarity to me. Thank you.
Cool. Emery, I think you were next. Did you have a question?
Yes, actually it's more of, I have a question regarding your personal opinion regarding the Ethereum Bitcoin pairing. Would that be appropriate to be asking such a question?
Sure. If I can answer, I'll answer.
So in the past weeks, I changed some of my Bitcoin towards Ethereum. And I was wondering, what would be your possible not price predictions, but would it gain more value against Bitcoin? And when would be the right time to change back to Bitcoin?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer for you. I don't really think about it that way. I don't actually trade between the coins. Like when I bought a bunch of Ethereum when the price got down to about 1,100 on that dip a few weeks ago. I used dollars to do that. I didn't get out of a Bitcoin position. I don't sell my Bitcoin. So I don't really trade between the cryptos except a little bit for the altcoins that I've mentioned in the past. Like I had some Cardano, which has been on an absolute tear lately. But so I don't really do what you're describing. I don't really have an exit price in mind for Ethereum right now, to be honest with you, because I think the run up over the next year is going to be insane, and I'm fine to take the risk holding, but that's me personally.
Actually, one more question.
Yeah, sure, and then we'll get to Jason. Sorry, Jason, hold on a second.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Actually, no, I apologize. It's in regards to Cardano, so I apologize. I can wait.
Okay, sure, thanks. Go ahead, Jason, and then we'll get back to DeAndre.
Hey, I had two quick questions. One, I wanted to know about what is the process that you, or even just other on-ramps or exchanges, go about picking which coins to list or support?
Yeah.
And projects or whatever. And then the other question I was going to ask is about the interest rates that you can earn. What is the basis of coming up with the rate you can get the return at, and I guess can you expand on how the interest rate works?
Yeah. So the first question I haven't talked about today, so let me address that one. The second one, interest rates, we've talked a little bit about. So on the listed coins on Abra, that's a great question. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. While we list about 125, I think, coins and tokens now, we track hundreds actively, literally in real time. We have a system that pulls in price feeds from all over the world, and also market cap data, trading volume data. We analyze the details of certain projects that we're interested in. We then go to our custody partners and liquidity providers, because Abra is kind of a front end on different exchanges, and so they have to list those tokens as well in order for us to manage liquidity. And so we'll often work with them to make decisions on what's interesting and what's going on, and have they done an analysis as to whether this might be deemed a security, for example, in the U.S. So sometimes you'll see projects listed outside the U.S. that aren't in the U.S., and that's often a decision that we're forced to make because custody providers are comfortable listing certain tokens outside the U.S. but not in the U.S. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just Monday night. I don't send a Slack message to my team and say, okay, let's list this token tomorrow, and then tomorrow morning it's live. It doesn't work that way. There's often weeks of work going on behind the scenes to make all this happen and figure out what's the best thing for you. We don't want to spoon feed our opinion on the markets to consumers. We don't work that way, but we do have to make smart decisions from a legal perspective and from a liquidity perspective. So if a bunch of you end up buying a token that you can't sell, for example, that's really bad. And so we try to avoid putting you in that situation ever. So long answer to your question. Hopefully that makes sense. On the interest rate question, I just talked about this, but basically we're doing enterprise lending for deposits to generate the yield. And the different interest rates are basically a function of the demand. And right now there's way more demand for dollars than anything else, which we store as stablecoins, which is why the rates there are 10% versus the 4.5% to 5% that you see for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Lumens, Litecoin, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. I'm going to end I'm going to keep the Clubhouse room open. I'm going to end the live stream for Periscope, Facebook, Twitch, everyone else. Wish you all a great weekend. And we're going to go to a different format for Money Talks, which we'll announce next week.